Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Conductor Office Hours. I'm your host, Matt, joined by Scott. Scott.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Good, how about you, Matt?
It's been a long time since I've said, and I'm joined by my co-host, Scott.
I know, yeah. Back in the week in WordPress days.
I know, man, we should probably bring that back. We should probably bring that back. If anybody wants that, we're using the hashtag Conductor Plugin, hashtag Conductor Plugin on Twitter. We'll take your questions about Conductor. Sort of the idea of the show, like many of us are sort of accustomed to with office hours stuff, we're talking specifically about Conductor and WordPress and sort of how it works with the two. There's another great office hours show that comes on after this, Genesis Office Hours, with our good pal, buddy, and Texan, Carrie Dills. Check that out, carriedills.com/GOH. And then you can check us out here every Thursday, hopefully, fingers crossed, except for next Thursday, because I'm going to be traveling to PrestigeConf, conductorplugin.com/COH.
At least you have the disclaimer on the website that says almost every Thursday.
Yeah, I know. I knew I put that in there for a reason.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into some of the stuff going on with Conductor and what we've done. You recently released 1.04, correct?
That is correct, yeah. That actually went out on my birthday, which is pretty cool.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So we added a lot of WordPress 4.0 improvements in that release. Specifically, a couple things that I want to mention. One, WordPress core actually added an "Are you sure?" message confirmation before you left the customizer. And due to the nature of Conductor, we have to actually refresh the customizer at this point to load any new sidebars that you may have on your newly conducted layout. And what happened was every time you went to go conduct the layout, the "Are you sure?" message would come up, and you'd have to, kind of be a nag and be in the way. So we have a nice workaround to get around that, and that message will only come up now if you haven't saved any of your settings to make sure that you don't lose any of them. Otherwise, if you're just conducting, it'll be just like 3.9. It'll be nice and seamless. One of the other cool updates was the fixing buttons in the previewer, which we just made a post on the other day a little bit, getting into some of the technicals aspects behind communicating between the previewer and the customizer. So definitely check that out on our blog. But the new helper buttons actually work with the new panels API in the customizer. So and it is back to WordPress 3.9 as well, which didn't have the panels API. So now when you actually click on, click on add a widget or add a conductor or edit a widget, it opens up the right panels. You don't have to go, finding those anymore.
Yeah, let me drop that into the hashtag Conductor Plugin, and we'll talk about this is the 1.04 release notes. So I'll drop that out there. And I want to specifically, one of the questions we get, and most folks, they don't understand how awesome it is until they actually try it. And it's just these little helper buttons that we put in.
Yeah.
And it really because we were building so many sites using Conductor in the early days. Actually, one of the questions that came in earlier on today was from Nick, and he was asking, that's TechVolts on Twitter. He was asking, how long have we been building this plugin, right? And it's been over a year. So it started in its real infancy. We built into a theme that we had built for a customer, client work. And then we actually turned it into a more traditional plugin solution, a la minimize blocks. Right?
Yeah.
So that was the original inception of it, which is on GitHub, so you can check the archives. Right? It's really been out there for a year. It certainly doesn't have the power of Conductor, but that was the starting point. And then really over the last 4 to 5 months, I'd say, we were really starting to kick it into more of a formalized product. But let me click the old share screen, and what the short code buttons do, right? And this is in our help docs and everything, but we do get people asking this when they see the video demos. What is this stuff for? What does it mean? Well, what we found as we were building sites with widgets constantly, it was always sort of not a pain, but it was time-consuming to go in and find widgets in the sidebar, right? And I'm pointing when I can just demo this right over here. So it was always sort of, how do we, go down the list, and when we want to add a widget, we have to pull this up, and then we have to find Conductor, or I always forget that it's alphabetical. But then if you're building plugins or widgets that are always, that you're constantly trying to find, just a little bit of a speed bump. So basically what we'll do here with our helper buttons is you just want to add a Conductor widget to your Conductor layout. And oh, by the way, we give you a dotted line to show you where these sidebars are. And this came from user testing and clients using Conductor because they were like, oh great, I can add this widget into my sidebar. And just so people can see this, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but just so people can see this, you can change the layout and add sidebars on the fly. Early iterations of Conductor didn't know where the sidebars were, right? Much like you don't know where the sidebars are in any WordPress theme unless you know where they are in the theme. But on the front end, because we are built in the customizer, we just, little simple thing, we just a little dotted line, like here's where the sidebar is, right? It's like stupid simple. And then now we have these buttons that say, oh, I want to add a widget right here. I can do that by just clicking on the widget button, and boom, the default WordPress widget menu comes up. And we just have a Conductor one because you're using Conductor to build it. We automatically assume you naturally want to add a Conductor widget there. So it doesn't even drop you into that menu. It just drops in a Conductor widget right here for you to go ahead and customize that or display the display content. So they're like little things, and when people look at it at first, they're like on. But then as soon as they start using it and they start building these sites, and they're like, oh wow, I'm never going in here to like search for stuff. And it's like these little seconds add up to minutes, which add up to hours, which saves you a bunch of time. On the flip side, we also have the edit button. So now, once you start building feature-rich content layouts, and you have a bunch of widgets, and you're building more complex layouts, now you just have to hover over the edit button, and the edit button will just take you directly to that specific widget to edit. Again, it's just, if you're repeating these things over and over again, we looked at it like, how do we make this a little bit easier and improve the user experience for the user? And your biggest update for 1.04 is it works with panels, right? Because when 4.0 came out, introduced the widget panels, the customizer panels, it wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly. So when you would either add a widget or edit a widget, it would open up the main customizer sidebar, but after that, it wouldn't really do too much. If you added a Conductor widget, it would actually add it to the sidebar, but the panel wouldn't show up. So you would kind of have to find it. You could be a little bit lost. And I want to note one thing too. We're adding these the edit buttons that Matt talked about, not just on Conductor widgets. They're actually on every widget in the sidebar when you're in the customizer. So you can click on edit and on any type of widget, and it will bring you right to that widget in the customizer. So again, as Matt said, we're building these client sites out. Clients are asking, hey, how can I make this a little bit faster? I have to go in and find all these things. Minutes turn into hours, and that equals saved money. So we go ahead and build these helper features, and so far they're working out quite nicely.
Yep. I want to remind everybody, if you use hashtag Conductor Plugin or just at Matt Medeiros, at Scott, at Slocum Studio, and you have a question about what we were talking about with Conductor, go ahead and ask us there, or head over to conductorplugin.com, go to the contact page, drop us a line. But if you have questions that you want us to answer live, go ahead and do that now. So speaking of customizer, making all things work customizer, you published the blog post yesterday talking about how you made the customizer talk to the previewer and sort of the challenges that you had with that. I'll drop that into the feed, but go ahead and let us know, what was the biggest challenge when you first started working with the customizer?
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think one of the biggest challenges overall is the fact that there's limited documentation as far as the JavaScript side goes. There are some good presentations out there that I found. One was done at WordCamp Boston either a year or 2 years ago, and the resources on GitHub are pretty good for that. And then there are a couple of other resources that I found, but there's no real official documentation, I don't think, at this point in time, besides looking in the code for the JavaScript aspect of the customizer. So I think that's a pretty big hurdle when you start getting into creating like a custom controller, which actually controls the settings and a particular setting and the value for that setting, like our content layouts, our conductor panel in the customizer sidebar. Actually, that's a custom controller. We had to build that, and just going in there and learning, all about that, figuring out how things work, was definitely a challenge. But the premise behind this series of blog posts is just to get people a little bit more familiar with how we do some of the more advanced things behind the scenes. So I do mention this in the blog post, but when you load a page in the customizer, the previewer actually sends behind the scenes the current conductor content layout over to the customizer, and then that way we know which layout to actually show in the sidebar. And it gets a little bit more technical than that. However, talking with the previewer and the customizer is actually pretty cool because it allows us to build these helper buttons and then also, again, show layout. And we could do more in the future. But this first blog post runs through how you would this is very basic. You just need two scripts, one that's enqueued on the customizer, one that's enqueued in the previewer. And then you need some data that you want to send either back and forth. And in those scripts, the one on the customizer just listens for when the previewer is done rendering. It'll send over the event. And the previewer script will actually, when it's activated and the iframe has loaded, will actually send that event over to the customizer. And in our example, we're just popping up a JavaScript alert that says, hey, I received the event. But you could do so much more. Again, like I talked about with our content layouts, we're actually behind the scenes sort of sending that over once the previewer loads. So it's pretty cool. The next post will talk about how we actually get those helper buttons into the previewer.
Right. So, put my marketing and sort of business owner hat on. What that means for me specifically, is we're building this on top of existing WordPress technology, right? So
yes, I want to mention. I'm sorry, I forgot to. A lot of this is based on the widgets in the customizer. The widget scripts that they added in 3.9. They actually needed a way to determine which sidebars were rendered on the previewer in the customizer. So they actually, a lot of this code is derived from that. Yeah. So it's really, it is, core functionality, which is cool.
Yeah, so a lot of the marketing stuff that we do, this is way into the blog post that I made the other day, but a lot of the marketing we do with this, and we showcase it in the customizer, and we say that we're using widgets and we're showing drag and drop, right? But we're not creating that, right? We're not adding an additional layer of technology that's either going to slow down your site or cause bloat or, just a whole, we're just bringing in something else from, out of space. We're working with what WordPress wants us to do. And we're doing that to the best of our ability right now. So we're trying to stay streamlined. We're trying to stay parallel to what WordPress and the customizer and the projected interface that they want us to follow. So what that means is we're not bringing in extra stuff, right? So if you're thinking about using Conductor and you're like, well, man, what is, they've got all these buttons and maybe they're loading in some kind of heavy Java script thing that's, going to cause something wrong with my site. No, we're trying to stay very streamlined with what WordPress wants us to do. Let me just do a quick demo. The other thing that comes up from time to time is because we do demos in the customizer all the time, folks expect that the only place that you can use a Conductor widget or to work with Conductor is in the front-end customizer, and that is sadly not the only truth to this whole scenario. You can also use Conductor widget in your typical widget dashboard. So because 90% of the power of Conductor is contained in the widget, you can come in the back end and drop in a Conductor widget anywhere you want in the in the back end and build your query right here. And talk and display the content that way. It doesn't always have to be in the front end. There's also the options panel where you necessarily don't always have to conduct the layout of your website in the customizer. So you can come into the options panel and say, hey, on my front page, maybe now I want to switch it to, maybe you're doing some kind of like full like global change on everything, and you want to do it really quick. You don't have to browse in the front. You just come to the options panel and say, okay, change the content sidebar. The about page will leave full width. On my Easy Digital download store, maybe I want to put the 2 sidebars on the left and then content on the right. And quickly come in and save those options, or conduct another page post or archive page. So you can do everything that we demonstrate in the front end. You can also do it in the back end.
Yeah, and you can even put a Conductor widget inside of any registered sidebar in your theme. It doesn't just have to go inside of Conductor sidebar, which is cool as well.
Yeah, which leads me to the blog post that I put out, a page builder that isn't a page builder. we don't necessarily consider. I'm going to do this. I'm going to type this out as I talk. You don't necessarily use. Because that everything is contained into a widget, and most of it comes from displaying content, right? What we're really solving is the complexity of having to be a developer, figuring out how to query, hey, I want 10 blog posts on this page in a grid. How do I do that? I got to figure out how to query that, figure out how to display that safely in my WordPress website, and then I need to style it. So I need to know a little bit of HTML and CSS, right? That's a typical scenario. And let me, sorry, as a page builder, I'll just put a question mark, make it a little bit easier for myself. So we don't necessarily consider ourselves a page builder in the sense of a true drag and drop system, right? To us, that's bringing in a lot of complexities and a lot of decisions to a client or a customer on how to build a website, right? Because most of the time it's, here's all this stuff that you have to choose from border radius to font size, and my mind is melting. I'm not a designer. I've made this ugly site now, and I've broken this responsive. It was responsive at one point, and now it isn't anymore because I broke it. So with Conductor, you can use our layouts to override your page or home page. You don't necessarily have to. If you have a Divi or a Make theme, and they have widget areas that you want to drop Conductor into, no problem. If you want to just use Conductor to override a home page and build a home page using Conductor and use the rest of the power of those themes or frameworks, no problem. Drop it in, conduct only the page you want. It's really about taking content, helping you display that in different forms, lists, grids, tables, that kind of thing, and then you know, allowing you to make many of those, right? All kinds of content. We're more focused on the content within your WordPress site and displaying that. For instance, working with AgentPress listings, right? It's our first integration that we put out, sort of teamed up with Carrie Dills and her winning agent theme to make that work really well with displaying real estate listings. Because that's typically one of those things where a real estate agent or a broker gets a WordPress theme and they're like, what the hell do I do with this, right? Sure, it looks great, but maybe I want to show my MLS number and my price alongside of, or on my listings page. Maybe I want to show that kind of data. Can I do that, right? That's what Zillow does. That's what Trulio does. Why can't I do that too with my WordPress site? Well, you can. You just have to be a developer or hire a developer. Maybe they can do it in an hour or so. It might cost you $100, $125. That's fine. But if you want to be able to do it, or if you're building sites for somebody to do this kind of thing, why not just give them the power to do that? And we do that really well with Conductor. So when you built the AgentPress plugin to support this stuff, work with custom fields, you know, what kind of challenges did you have pulling in custom fields and displaying that stuff with the customizer?
So we actually, what's kind of cool is this is sort of an add-on to an add-on. We have our custom fields add-on that everybody knows about, and this hooks into that add-on. And what it does is we went into the source code of AgentPress, grabbed the custom fields, and have a list, and it's appended to the list of your custom fields on your website. Some of the challenges that I faced in the customizer, at least, were getting the label to carry over into, so the label of the custom field, like listing price or listing city, getting that to carry over to the output. That was specifically within our Conductor widget, so not necessarily a challenge of the customizer itself, but that actually presented a little bit of a challenge, which was easy to get around after a little bit of debugging. And now when you add an AgentPress custom field to your Conductor widget, it will keep the label, which you can change if you want, just like any other custom field or element within the Conductor widget. One of the things we had to check is we had to make sure that Genesis was activated, AgentPress was activated, Conductor, our custom fields. Just a lot of preliminary checks that we had to go through. Speaking of Carrie Dillsmat, she actually has a question for us. She posted on Twitter. It says, can you give a high-level overview of things for theme developers to consider if they want to make a theme compatible with Conductor Plugin? So I think that's a great question. What I'm going to do is I'll run down just sort of an overview of how Conductor works again, and then I'll give a couple of tips and some things that we want to do in the future to make it a little bit easier for developers. So the first thing that I want to mention is Conductor doesn't actually insert any content into any of your pages at all. What we're doing and the approach that we're taking is very similar to WooCommerce, where we are using our template instead of what the theme actually wants when you do have a page conducted. So we're loading the header and the footer of the theme, and then we're sort of injecting our content in the middle of that, very much like WooCommerce does. One of the things that you can do as a Conductor user is disable or enable a layout at any specific time, and that will go ahead. If you did disable it, all of your original content will still be there. You won't be missing anything. And the other thing that I want to mention with our template is we have template tags, wrapper elements, much like WooCommerce features, and you can go ahead and filter those if you are a developer, or you can even copy templates into your theme, and Conductor will look there first. It'll look in a child theme first, then in the parent theme, and then if it doesn't find any templates, it'll use the ones that come with Conductor. We have our three sort of main layouts, I'll call them, with our Conductor content layouts. We have a full width, a content sidebar, and a content sidebar at this point in time. In the future, we'll probably have some more layouts, but each layout and every Conductor content layout itself has its own CSS classes. Some of them are shared across multiple elements. That way you can target all of those elements at once as a developer, or if you just want to target like the primary sidebar, secondary sidebar, whatever that might be. One of the things in the future that we want to do is get a list of all those CSS classes and IDs to help developers out and just sort of explain how to go about styling a specific aspect. And then the other thing I want to mention is, for the most part, we try our best to inherit the styles from a theme. Most of the time it works pretty well out of the box. Sometimes a link color might need to be changed, or if it's a complex theme, some other styling might need to be changed. And again, that will go hand in hand with those CSS classes that we can have a list of and to help developers out. For the most part, our layouts look okay on most of the themes that we've tested. As far as the widths of the columns and whatnot, we do plan on adding some more, making some more improvements to those in the future. So pretty much it's just a matter of potentially styling some elements of the theme, like the Read More button or the featured images, padding, margin, but overall there shouldn't be too much of a barrier to actually getting Conductor to look well in your theme, depending on the nature of it. So
right.
Hopefully that's a good enough overview.
Yeah. So the other thing that, again, put the marketing business owner side hat on, and to explain that stuff. First of all, at the end of the show, we're going to give a coupon that'll last only up until the end, or I guess I should say until the end of Genesis Office Hours, where you can save $20 on the Power User Pack. That coupon code will be announced at the end of the show, only available to the end of Carrie's Genesis Office Hour show.
And does that Power Pack include the AgentPress stuff, Matt?
It does, Scott.
Awesome.
It does. But I've got the demo loaded up here. Unfortunately, I had deleted this staging server or staging site before, so I lost the actual listing content that I had. But here's how our custom fields work. You come over to the left-hand side. You say, oh, I don't want to show post title. You hide it, right? That'll change everything on the right-hand side. Boom, there goes the post title. It's gone. I don't want it to see author byline. We hide it. It's gone. And now you're left with your content and your read more link. And oh, by the way, you can drag and drop these custom fields and reorder them however you want. So in one hand, as a theme author, if you're like an indie theme author, or you're a big shop, and you want to integrate and support Conductor, what you're essentially doing, the marketing side of it is, you're now giving your end user infinite possibilities to build their layouts, and it's not with CSS and margins and stuff that you're afraid that they're going to break your theme with. You support the layouts of Conductor, which is very minimal, right? Just CSS, and a lot of it is just core WordPress stuff. And now they can go and build their homepage however you want them to, or however they want to. You support these different multiple layouts, and you can do it really easily. So it gives your themes some extra legs, especially if you have themes that have been sort of, you can sort of revitalize it with some Conductor support. Secondly, with a more content-driven theme like Carrie's winning agent theme, because it can show agent listings and display all sorts of content. If I were to just come over here and say Agent Press, I start typing Agent Press, our add-on finds all the available fields that we can show for Agent Press listings. Again, these aren't listings, but if they were, I could add something here, like I could just add the price. That'll add the listing price for a property right down here on the list, and then I could drag it and bring it right below the feature, and then I could go and grab all the other Agent Press data and spit that out there as well. And then you can just double-click on it and change the label. Again, there's no data here. Maybe in the next show we'll demo it. But there is a blog post that I put out. You can find it on conductorplugin.com. You can see it in action. But you can build more of these content-rich sites. And oh, by the way, if you're just really good at designing themes and layouts of themes, now you don't have to worry about the code. And then your client doesn't have to worry about the code. Your customer doesn't have to worry about the code, right? That's the whole point, and that's why we sort of feel that this is not your typical page builder. Stick around to the end of the show. We'll get you that $20 off, good to the end of Genesis Office Hours. So let's check the hashtag and see what else we got.
Yeah, I got another question here from Jackie Diella. If you build a site with Conductor Plugin, does your client need to have a license for it?
Great question. Yes, they do. They do if they want to continue to receive updates, or if you are sort of, if you're so there's different thought processes to WordPress freelancers, and some of them will sort of stay on contract with their customers and continue to support them. So keeping in their sort of Gravity Forms licenses and Conductor licenses is okay because they're still there with them, and they're going to be supporting the site for them. If you are handing it over to a customer and you're saying, here's the power of Conductor, you can control the content on your homepage or wherever. Oh, by the way, grab a license from the folks over at conductorplugin.com because they are going to continue doing the updates, and you may want us to do direct support. The site will still function. You will still get the control of whatever version number you have installed, but if you forget to grab a license, the updates will not go out and the support will not be available. So great question. If you have any other questions, hashtag Conductor Plugin, and we'll get those answered for you. Our show is supposed to only run for about 30 minutes. We're almost there.
Right on time.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. If you want to go ahead and save $20 on the Pro Pack, the Power User Pack, excuse me. I forgot what the coupon code was. Go grab it. I set it up before the show. Let me log in and find that that coupon. Sorry about that. Easy digital downloads is what we use. Coupon code, oh boy, how could I forget? Save $20 by using code SAVE20 at checkout today. Again, that lasts only for the next roughly 3 hours or so when Carrie's show ends. Today she has Brian Clark on from Copyblogger Media. That should be an amazing show. So make sure you check that out, carriedeals.com/GOH. And again, if you want to save $20 on all the fun stuff we've been talking about today, you can save 20 at the coupon code during checkout. I'll save you $20.
Couldn't be more simpler.
Couldn't be more simpler. Any other questions before we wrap up, Scott? Anything else what is part 2 of your blog series going to be?
Part 2 of my blog series will actually talk about how we get those helper buttons into the previewer. And then going from there, we'll actually talk about, instead of triggering an event on load, we will actually trigger an event when the user clicks on one of those buttons. So next post we'll talk about how you actually get those buttons into the previewer in the customizer.
That's great. Look forward to that. I left the screen on over there. So anybody who's a developer and you are sort of scratching your head with the front-end customizer, making that all work, check out Scott's post. Look for part 2. That should be really, really good. If you want to save $20, again, save 20 at checkout today on conductorplugin.com. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you maybe not next week, but maybe the week, maybe the week after.
All right. Enjoy your weekend, guys.
All right.